Having reviewed Carlton's report and conducted further inquiries, we found that there were sufficient visual cues, performance data during the match, and an understanding of Elijah's individual circumstances to indicate that he should have been removed from play earlier than he was. We also determined that the delay in removing Elijah from the field resulted in an outcome that brought the game into disrepute. These findings have been made against the Carlton Football Club collectively, not against any individual. As a result, Carlton has been found to have breached AFL Rule 2.3a and has been sanctioned $75,000, with a full amount to be donated to the AFL's mental health partner, Headspace.
That was AFL CEO Andrew Dillon. The big news here today that Carlton has accepted and been sanctioned by the AFL for the Elijah Hollands saga. The AFL set to make changes. This is the AFL Daily Roundtable. It's great to have your company wherever you're watching, or perhaps you're listening wherever you get your podcasts. Damian, Barrett, Nat Edwards and Josh Gabelich with you. We will resume our normal roundtable format in just a moment. But this is the breaking news of the day, Damo. Probably the biggest story to date in 2026. We heard Andrew Dillon talk there about the fine of $75,000 and the way that they have come to this conclusion with the investigation. Your initial thoughts?
Well, it took them 3 weeks effectively, Nat, or thereabouts, to get to the bottom of it. And as we have now learned in the preceding moments, that they've decided the club and not the individuals within the club are the problematic areas. So processes completely, and the I suppose paraphrasing of a lengthy explanation around it and some dancing around it for legal and medical reasons was that Elijah Hollands shouldn't have been on the ground for as long as he was. And as we know, Gabbo, he came off the ground early to mid last quarter of the game in question.
Yeah, we got that confirmation finally, and I thought Laura Kane summarised it well at the end. Took a long time to get to that point, didn't it? But the confirmation that he should not have been playing for anywhere near as long as he did play, because it took until 10 minutes into the last quarter for him to come off the ground for the final time. Where does it compare? We don't see clubs fine this significantly ever. I mean, there haven't been too many cases in the last decade where we've seen a club fine $75,000 or more.
As always is the case, lawyers get involved, and they need to, because everyone needs to be protected legally in these situations. And then you had the overlapping of that with the medical concern, which was at the forefront of the entire investigation by the club and the AFL, and that's all needs to be factored in. But yeah, the $75,000, when you line it up with what they are alleged and now have found to have done to leave a player on a ground in a match of football in a condition in which he should not have been in that situation, I'd argue that it's at the lighter end, but I think that they went into it arguing that this needed to be a lesson and almost a blueprint for future examples. And there's no doubt, and it needs to be acknowledged, the complexity of the mental health space inside all of this is paramount. But Gabbo, I mean, just a couple of recent examples. $100,000 was the fine in 2023 for Port Adelaide Footy Club when they failed to properly treat their players, Alir being one of them, in a concussion moment. So that was more than what the Carlton Footy Club got for this one, which I would argue, just if you want to line up transgressions, is more serious because
or at least on par.
Happened over at least on par, Nat. Yeah, and here we are 3 years later, inflation factored in, it being a lesser penalty. You can't compare these cases, I must admit. But yeah, in terms of asking me to rank it, possibly light on the back end of it being bringing the game into disrepute outcome.
You do love the term the wet lettuce leaf. Does that apply in this case?
Look, I was of the undertaking, Nat, that it was never going to be a name and shame exercise. And it clearly wasn't, because they were at pains. And I think it's the right thing to do with this one because of the complexity of the mental health nature of it. I mean, the questions came from the media, and rightly so. Was drug testing involved? Was alcohol testing involved? I've previously reported to today that it was my strong belief that both of that was done in the days after the match in question. I also at the same time reported we won't ever know the results of that.
They wouldn't confirm that today.
And no, they wouldn't. And nor do I feel we need to.
No, it's private medical information. So there were three cues that they took. So there were visual cues, performance data, and the understanding of Elijah Hollands' individual circumstances. So that's what they made this adjudication on. There is a WorkSafe investigation that is also taking place at the same time. They were also asked, I guess, about how the industry as a whole has handled this, because Michael Voss was very strong in his press conference a couple of weeks ago, saying that he felt like the club had been bullied around this, which was really interesting. The other part I wanted to talk about too was some of the processes that Laura Kane spoke about in terms of policies and processes moving forward. So they are going to establish an AFL Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee. Full-time psychologists will be mandatory for AFL and AFLW programs commencing immediately. They're going to review the soft cap in regards to healthcare as well, and the mental health roundtable in the lead up to Spud's game will also take place. The full-time psychologist one is interesting because Carlton had a part-time psychologist who we understand was on the phone at some point during the match to Elijah at some point. But I'm not sure having a full-time psychologist changes anything if they are at the ground. And Laura Kane was also asked, do you think that full-time psychologist then should be there on game? And she kind of danced around it a little bit and wasn't definitive in whether they should or shouldn't. So I'm not sure that's also the answer to all of that either.
No, it's probably not. And that would, I would imagine, Gabbo, when you're deeply into this space more than I am, that would come under soft cap arrangements of footy clubs, wouldn't it? So there'd need to be...
Most clubs do have a psychologist or a psychiatrist of some sort, but not all clubs use them on game day.
Right.
So I'm intrigued to see if clubs do it more going forward on the back of this.
All right, that is the Elijah Hollands saga wrapped up for now. Carlton, I assume, will have a response. You can keep an eye on afl.com.au and AFL Live app for that, but they have accepted the $75,000 sanction. And I should mention as well that the full amount of the $75,000 will be donated to Headspace. Let's resume normal programming now. It's time for Get It Off Your Chest.
The Crows were robbed right in front of me. Right in front of me.
Get it off your chest.
All right, Josh, you are up first when it comes to Get It Off Your Chest. What have you got for me?
Well, now I think on the back of what we saw on Sunday night, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan still has a lot to offer at AFL level. In the space of 45 minutes, I felt like he injected life into his career. He's still got a lot of work to do to become a star again. But geez, he took his chances in that second half. Those 3 goals were superb. And I think there weren't many at that club that were all in on this. If you go back to October, no other club had any interest in offering Jamarra a lifeline. In fact, it was just Damian that drove this. He loved the redemption arc, and we've seen across the last fortnight that this guy can still play at this level, and I love the way they've managed him. They put him in for surgery a month ago to deal with an arthroscope on his knee. He's come back, kicked 5 in the VFL and had an impact at AFL level. So I just imagine what he's going to be like if he gets 6 to 8 weeks continuity. I think he could be a real wild card for the Suns at the back end of the year. And what a bonus he will be, given they spent so much on Christian Petrarca. They spent nothing on Jamarra. And they could be pivotal players come the business end of the season.
It was just great to see him enjoying football and smiling and, I mean, obviously showing his talent, which we know he has in spades. But I think just the enjoyment factor and seeing that he's actually doing well from a physical and a mental health perspective as well, I think was really important, Damo.
Yeah, it was. And then I'll jump in with my Get It Off Your Chest on the back of the mental health part of what you're referring to there with Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, because I have long had a hatred, and I'm happy to say that, rather than even loathing, of the club supporter groups which choose to Bronx cheer their own. And I'm referring to the Ben Mackay situation on the weekend just gone with Essendon supporters. Now, people may listen to this and hear me talk about this and think, well, big deal, I've got a right to do what I want to do in a game. And okay, I respect that too, but I don't like it, and I think we should, in 2026, be beyond it, given the 3 topics we've spoken about already today: Elijah Hollands, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, and now Ben Mackay, to a point, have been in that zone. So I don't like it, Nat. I know we're not going to get a blanket ban on it, but I just wanted to flag it, given it was only the weekend just gone when it happened yet again in an AFL game.
I like it. All right, my Get It Off Your Chest for this week needs a little bit of context, so take a listen or a watch of this.
I'm told that you volunteered yourself to go and give a hat to Sydney Sweeney earlier this afternoon.
Absolutely not. I've been stitched up there, and my girlfriend wasn't happy when she found out, but I was roped into that by the media team, but it was lovely to meet her. She's so nice, so it's good.
I'm sure you put up a lot of resistance.
Yeah, I did heaps. Thanks, Errol.
Thanks, Errol.
Good luck. See you soon.
I'm sorry, Errol. You were roped into it. Come on, you loved every second of it. It's Sydney Sweeney, for goodness sake. And you know what? If I was Errol's girlfriend, I'd be giving him a high five. That is pretty damn good indeed. He just loves rubbing shoulders with the celebs at the moment.
You've raised Sydney Sweeney's name on this round table, I reckon,
I'm a fan.
4 times in the 3 years we've been doing it.
Big fan, but she's a big Sydney fan because this is the second time, I think, that
She's 2 and
been
zip.
out there. 2 and zip.
The Swans are 2 and zip when Sydney Sweeney is at the SCG.
So you know what that means, Sydney? Get her to a grand final so that you can finally break this drought. Come on. You had the secret weapon sitting there the whole time. Now, Damo, something has appeared behind you, which has caught my attention here. And it looks like our producers, Darcy and Joey, have gone to work on a whiteboard that they've just left hanging around the office on the AFL Daily team. As we take a look here after the Lions whiteboard saga, there's some strengths and weaknesses, if I can get that out. I love your weaknesses, by the way. Guernseys, expected scores, and Bevo. Gabbo, online shopping and word limits for you. Your feature's getting a bit lengthy.
Yeah. They don't ever mention that, but I always think that I get a bit of grief. Yeah, online shopping is a problem.
I reckon your fingerprints are over this, Nat. You're trying to blame Darcy and Joey. I reckon you've done this.
I spent hours on this earlier.
Why would I write that I'm a selfish diva as a weakness?
Because you are.
And have a potty mouth.
That's true.
That is true.
Luckily, though, and
cashies are a strength, though.
Cashies?
Cashies are a strength.
I do love a cashie. I mean, come on.
No, you run it through the books, Nat.
Yeah, no, that's right. I do. And I just do want to point out to Joel Peterson, who's filling in for Sarah Ollie. We've crossed Sarah's name off there. But Kez, his wife, Karen Peterson, an elite athlete, obviously the former captain of Carlton's AFLW team, which is why she is very much a strength when it comes to Joel Peterson. Just on a serious...
And Sarah nearly got a mention, but then got her name scrubbed out.
Well, she's on maternity leave.
True.
We still love her. Shout out to Sarah Ollie. On a serious note, though, I do just want to say I feel like this Brisbane Lions thing in terms of the players' strengths and weaknesses has been overblown, but I did not like the use of Jackson Pryor's partner in that. I think that women have been the butt of many a joke in football locker rooms for a very, very long time, and it just was uncalled for, and Hugh McCluggage basically said as much today. He said that was really regrettable.
Yeah, I agree with all that, Nat. I agree with your take on it as well, and equally I think it was definitely a story when it became public. There was no issue with it being broadcast, in my eyes, the way it has been. I think most media outlets have had a similar view to your own, and everyone's entitled to their opinion on it, full stop, but I'd imagine a form of that would go on at every single football club in some way every single week.
I'd love to read them all, that's for sure. I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but I would. And one thing is for sure, there is now frosted glass out at Springfield. All right, plenty more AFL Daily on the other side of this.
Hey, it's Patrick Dangerfield from the Geelong Football Club, and you're listening to AFL Daily. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, from one captain to another, we're going to talk about GWS skipper in Toby Greene, because he is the subject, Damo, of your column, which you are currently writing.
Part of a column, I'm writing that. And we say part, don't we, on Tuesdays, because I'm meant to have finished it by the time we get together for the round table, and I rarely have, and time gets away from me on that deadline.
Okay.
But I'm nearly finished it.
Has it been popping up on a Wednesday from time to time?
I think they held it over till Wednesday. Maybe they didn't get it till late last Tuesday night.
So you missed the deadline.
I think they changed the graphic. It was Damo on Wednesday instead of Damo on Tuesday. Anyway, continue.
I was wondering why I get no feedback to it until I realised it wasn't been published. So, as part of a wider chat, Nat, about the tendency, and we saw it as recently as last trade season, where 4 captains attempted to leave their clubs, and 2 of them actually left. Oscar Allen obviously being one of them, Jack Steele for other reasons being another, Jai Simpkin and Zach Merritt also tried to. I just go back to 2016, as we're about to hit the trade period of the season, and the news broke that Sam Mitchell was leaving Hawthorn to go to West Coast, and I remember my reactions were initially shock and then disbelief at how could this happen. And I just raise it because 10 years down the track, we've become conditioned to it, a captain or a former captain of a club wanting out. And I just raise it because Toby Greene's in the situation right now. He's got a unrestricted free agency status on himself this year. There's a 2-year deal for him to consider to stay as a Giant, and that's the favoured option. But it's not the 100% locked-in guaranteed option right now. There's reasons for him to consider going elsewhere. It's up to him, obviously. He will make the call. He's always been loyal, Gabbo, hasn't he? He's had offers prior to now to leave, and he hasn't. Family situations, there's an expectation that he'll leave Sydney and come back to Melbourne once his playing career finishes. And there's going to be some Melbourne clubs interested in him. And look, he's got a decision to make, is the premise of the column, as does, I think, Patrick Cripps, Nat, who is contracted at Carlton for 2027. There's a different reason for him to have a look at the future, and the two Perth clubs have been considering it for some time already. So, yeah, just I suppose the conditioning of the competition as a starting point to these situations, and then specifically two more massive names. Toby Greene, the greatest, according to Dave Matthews, the CEO of the club, giant of all time, and Paddy Cripps, a two-time Brownlow medalist.
Well, Toby Greene just broke the record for the club's games record holder. And he strikes me as someone who is really loyal and absolutely loves this club. And obviously, family and your situation changes. But I dare say he will want to be there if the Giants salute at some point in the near future in terms of winning a flag and being a premiership captain.
Yeah, no, it's hard to see him playing for any other club because he has been so loyal. He's one of the originals, as you just touched on, went past Cal Ward's games record. Feels on track for 300 games, but at 32, it's an interesting time to come out of contract because he's still got enough currency at this point in time. He can still offer a club 2, maybe 3 years. Has that offer, as you touched on, from the Giants, but the pull of home is real. I think once you have a baby, multiple babies, and you live away from home, it's a struggle. So it's going to be an interesting watch, Damo. It's going to be an interesting read, your column this week.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, you've also got a decision that club, and getting away from maybe the column, that about Jesse Hogan, who's similar situation, a former Coleman medalist in 2024, not playing anywhere near that level now, an expectation from him, and understandably, maybe, Gabbo, that the money that they've put into him should have been more, but equally from the club's perspective, he's not playing as a Coleman medalist right now, is he? When they've got to make this decision and then factor in not just 2027, but also 2028 too. So I can see both sides to it. And again, whether he does, it may ultimately influence Toby, because I feel now, and I know others have got a different view, and you're probably more buoyant than I am, but I'm worried about the Giants at 2-6 to this season.
They are in a difficult position right now in terms of not just Toby Greene, Jesse Hogan, Stephen Coniglio is the other one who's out of contract this year, and they're a difficult read, all three of them, on what they're worth, because clearly in the past they've been stars and common medalists in Jesse Hogan's case, but getting value for money from a contract perspective is difficult for them right now, Nat, because they've got to think about not just Tom Green, but Lockie Ashton 2027. Never ends with the Giants with the contractual squeeze.
Sometimes you've got to take a sacrifice, though, when it comes to pay, if you want to keep a group together, if you believe that you have what it takes to win a flag. Yeah,
they've had a go, haven't they? I mean, I don't think anyone could question what they've done, both obviously in 2019 when they somehow got to a grand final and then lost badly, but preliminary finals before and after that as well. They've batted, I think, in some respects above their average. Is it going to surprise you, though, Gabbo, if he was to, or would it surprise you if he was to leave? You're as keyed into that club as anyone I know.
It would surprise me just because of how invested he's been in the journey of a club coming from being built from scratch. It would surprise me if he left, but as he touched on that, your family situation does change, and he's been open publicly about the difficulty of raising a family away from home with no support. What about Patrick Cripps, just to close this conversation, Damo? Would it surprise you if he ended his time at Carlton?
You couldn't begrudge him.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah, he's got a year to run. It just wouldn't surprise me. But I feel for him in this regard that his form has just dropped off dramatically. And
understandable,
look,
though.
I think it is understandable, yeah. And the pressure and the burden and the weight of expectation that I think he's lived up to up until basically opening round this year, it's fallen away. And whether the currency that he may have felt he had at the start of the year is still going to be there, I don't see a spot for him at Fremantle, for instance, if it was Perth that he wants to go and play for, because he's made it pretty well known to a lot of people close to him over a number of years that once his playing days are over, he will likely return to Perth, and that's, I should say WA, but if it is to be brought forward inside that contract he's gotten at, that would mean one of the two Perth clubs. And would you want to go and play for West Coast if you're coming from Carlton? No. And equally, I don't know whether the Dockers need a Paddy Cripps style right now. I mean, they're almost trying to phase out of their midfield operations players who are slower than others. You know. So again, I reckon you'd find a spot for him if you knew he was available, but to go and knock the door down to get him, I'm not as sure.
The added complexity, Damo, is the Lockie Neal situation. In all of that, when you think about Patrick Cripps and his options if he was to return home, we might wait and see what Lockie Neal does.
Could be a double act.
It could be indeed. All right, Damo's column, afl.com.au and the AFL Live app. Once it's finished, it will be a very good read. All right, time now for Fact or Furphy.
Fact. You can't handle the truth.
He'll definitely play the week after.
And the truth shall set you free.
Yeah, I did promise he was going to play, didn't I? I'm going to have to go back on that word. He's definitely not playing.
All Furphy.
The old draw debate reared its head after Thursday night last week. The draw between Collingwood and Hawthorn. Do we like it? Don't we like it? One thing is for sure, though. When you're leaving the ground as a fan, you feel empty. You don't know how to feel. It's the most bizarre thing. Everyone's looking at each other. No theme song is played. Fact or furphy, Damo? There should be a song played after a draw.
Well, let's hear that song first, Nat.
Phil's singing.
That is ridiculous.
They have a legit song.
That's ridiculous.
I reckon they should play it. It would lift the crowd's spirits.
You're not supposed to be lifted after a draw. You're supposed to...
You're meant to be deflated.
Yeah.
Only you could think that would be a good idea. That's a complete furphy.
I've lived the draw on grand final day as a supporter, and so has this guy over here.
A longer time ago than you.
In my head, I was trying to work out music.
I love that. Yeah, that song might have made you feel better.
Oh, yeah, right. I feel really good. Yeah. Hey, Gabbo, and that's furphy, by the way, Nat. The Koning Marshall ruck pairing will be a huge weapon for the Saints going forward.
Furphy, only because it's just too soon. But geez, it looked good on Saturday night. I need to see it over the course of 6 to 8 weeks to see if it really does work. Nat, all club list bosses should be taking a long, hard look at themselves for not going harder at Melly Roses. Fact or furphy?
Well, off the back of his 7 goals, I'm going to say fact. What a steal. I mean, he had shown glimpses at the Gold Coast Suns, that's for sure. We knew he had talent, but did we think he had a bag of 7 in him? I don't know.
No.
But he has definitely been a big improver, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. So I'm going to say fact right now. Josh, fact or furphy, the Lions' whiteboard drama has more hype than a Met Gala outfit reveal.
Furphy. You've been living in this world all day. It is a good day on the calendar, isn't it, if you're into this sort of thing? Who's grabbed your attention?
Cardi B has caused a lot of, talk with her outfit, which someone described as a human colon. So it's fashion is art. That's the theme of the Met Gala. And you'll have to just check it out online. But the bottom of her dress, it looks like, you love Cardi B. What are you talking about? Gigi Hadid was basically naked underneath her dress.
Okay.
Anyway, some good outfits there.
Bad Bunny was sensational.
Bad Bunny was good. Naomi Osaka's was very, very nice.
So one of those Kardashians, that she was there?
One of the Kardashians.
I couldn't tell you which one.
Damo,
Yes.
the Kangaroos' back line is a glaring list weakness.
Yeah.
Fact or furphy?
Big facts. Yeah, I've been worried about it, Gabbo, and how it combines up, core, combin, logue, pink, in and out. It's unfortunately just not going to get it done. I rate all of those players, but not for one of them to be the main man. And obviously when I say that, it means that then some of them get the second best and third best on certain weeks when I think they're all the second and third best options as a
should have gone harder
summation.
For a key defender last October.
They should have. It was always going to be, to me, the glaring weakness, and it remains.
Certainly does.
It does, and I'm going to you now, Nat.
Yes, you are.
The Eagles are in the biggest rut since the Bombers in September. Fact or furphy?
Furphy, the Bombers are in the biggest rut ever, more so than the Eagles. They haven't won a final since 2004. I won't give you the tally of the days because I've sworn off that, but that is
Hang on, so you've cordoned off the rut just to September?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So you agree with Elliot Yeo? It was a blasé question.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't.
It was outrageous.
It was a very good
outrageous
question.
It was outrageous.
It was a very good question.
It was a good question.
Lost
I don't
88
think
of
it
the
was so
1,000.
bad that he was trying to take a positive spin on it. Anyway, I think he's been hard done by Elliot Yeo. Josh, fact or furphy, the showdown is officially the best rivalry in the AFL.
Fact, we love it. It's absolutely amazing, and it delivered once again. Maybe, Damo, we see it come across the board at some point. Damo, Brodie Grundy has overtaken Max Gawn as the starting All-Australian after round 8, given what transpired on Sunday. Fact or furphy?
I'm going to go furphy because I've got Luke Jackson ahead of both of them.
Yeah, we discussed this last week.
Yeah, we did. And I understand people will argue that he's maybe not the purest of pure ruckmans, Luke Jackson, but I would argue he's better than those two right now. If you want to bring it back to Grundy and Gawn, I agree with you, Gabbo, that Grundy might have, after 8 rounds of this season, at least drawn level and maybe just got his head in front of Gawn.
But just how important will that matchup be? Because last year the selectors cited the matchup late in the year where Gawn smashed Grundy.
Yep.
It's part of the reason why they picked him for an 8th time. I mean, I think we'll be talking about that come the end of August.
Yep. good point, but I'm going Furphy with that. And Natski, Fremantle's goal celebration mishap nearly cost him the game on Friday night. Fact or Furphy?
Fact. If you're not across it, Andrew Brayshaw celebrated a goal and he cut Josh Tracy across the head. And from that point, Fremantle were coming, but the Dogs turned the table and started to make some gains. And while Josh Tracy was off the ground with blood pouring from his face, so he should be banned from all goal celebrations.
Second time it's happened to the Big Kahuna.
Yeah, I know. So he just bleeds
from teammates.
Bleeds too easily.
Is there more on the Big Kahuna to come?
Excuse me?
Today on the podcast. Is there more to come with the Big Kahuna?
I don't know. There might be.
Okay, just
a little bit later on. Just
Actually, there is.
tuned.
I've just realised what you're saying.
Okay, stay tuned.
All right, before we get to that though, you had a little piece on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app during the week, Gabbo, on Max King, because it was a bad week to be a hamstring over the weekend. We saw someone do their hammy.
If you're a key forward.
Tossing the coin. We saw Hawthorn's physio.
Do two
hammies. Apparently he's getting surgery
Andrew
tomorrow.
Lombard.
Yes. Hope he recovers
Brody,
well.
my check, Nat.
My check.
Taylor Walker.
That's only 1 to 2 weeks. But Max King was the big one, playing in the VFL, and his injury history, we haven't seen him since 2024. You just feel for the guy, and you've got a piece that you've written that relates things back to James Hird. Talk me through it.
Well, I just wanted to look back in the modern era and think about players that have overcome long-term injuries. I mean, Max King, by the time he returns this year, will have missed more than 2 years of football. Hasn't played since round 16 of 2024. And has only played 23 of the 77 games since Ross Lyon came back for a second stint. Think about that. That's just how much football he's missed. But it wasn't that long ago that Charlie Curnow missed 2 years, played 15 games across 3 years, came back and won back-to-back Colemans, back-to-back All-Australian selections. But I went back even further to James Hird. Different injury, of course, the navicular. But after winning the Brownlow medal back in 1996, he played 22 games across the next 3 years. And for a period, I spoke to him yesterday, for a period he just was fearing, Damo, that he'd never make it back at all. And then, of course, 2000 is a legendary season, not just for him, but for that club. He won the Norm Smith medal. Became All-Australian again.
They lost one game in the whole season.
His whole career.
Yeah, and you're right to go back to that, Gabba, because it was early 1999 when the news dropped. He played a game of footy, but the murmurings, even within the media, and it got out into the crowd, that the game in question might have been the last time we'd see him this year. And then that did emerge from the story. He finished the game, he was on the boundary, and it had emerged that the foot injury was of such a nature that he was out for the year. And I remember, everyone did at the time in media, just writing stories. Have we seen the last of him? And at best, have we seen the best of him? And yet he came back with that extraordinary season after it. So it does give hope. It does give hope, because the doom and gloom around James Hird at that point in time was equal to what we're talking about Max King.
That was real, wasn't it? Because it feels like the doom and gloom around Max King right now is he'll just never get back. And if he does get back, he might play, another 40 or 50 games.
That's the worry right now, isn't it?
But if you look at James Hird, he played another 165. He was All-Australian 3 more times and won 2 more best and fairest. So he did have a big impact when he came back. And I just looked at a couple of others. Nick Malczewski was another who had back-to-back ACLs and became an integral member of that 2012 Premiership team. And 2 that I remember distinctly, Dave Swallow and Jay Gray-Mira, who both had career-threatening injuries to their knees, missed 2 years of football, and both of them have played more than 150 games since that moment. So it just does have a bit of hope for Max King.
Also, at what level did they get back to?
Yeah,
that's the question, Joe Danaher's another comparison. The 3 seasons prior to him going to Brisbane, he played less than double-figure matches in each of those 3 seasons, and it was very small on 1 year. So, there's hope there. There's almost a blueprint when you look at Joe Danaher. That's a more recent example of a key forward who had big problems prior to then getting a lot of footy into his system in a different system.
All right, we're going to stick with the key forward theme in just a moment. Stay with us on AFL Daily.
Hey, it's Murphy Reid from the Fremantle Dockets. Subscribe to AFL Daily podcast now and never miss an episode.
Perfect timing from Murphy Reid, because we're about to chat about one of his teammates. You mentioned the big kahuna, Josh Tracy. He's absolutely flying, and as we talked about, he's such a key part of Fremantle's flag push.
Is he your non-Hawthorn favourite player, Nat? You talk about him a lot.
He's not. I just really like him and the way that he goes about it, and I think the fact too that he was a rookie selection in 2020. So selection 7. It just blows my mind. And obviously 2020, COVID affected year, all of those things. But for him to, and he was much maligned too at the start of his career as well. It just takes a little longer for these key forwards to get going. But it got me thinking about the best rookie selections throughout history that we have seen. So I've put together my top 5. So an honourable mention to Matthew Boyd and Nick Maxwell. I think Nick Maxwell, what he did to be a premiership captain and to captain one of the biggest clubs in the whole land is pretty awesome, but unfortunately didn't make my top 5. So coming in at number 5, Aaron Sandilands, picked 33 in the 2002 rookie draft, 271 games, a 4-time All-Australian, a 2-time Best and Fairest winner. He was just an absolute giant in the sense of the word. Coming in at number 4, Josh Gibson, picked 7 in the 2005 rookie draft. As we know, a 3-time premiership Hawk. He won 2 club Best and Fairest in those flag years, which I think just sets him apart.
Well, it puts him in Jason Dunstall category.
It does indeed. Coming in at number 3, the only rookie to have won a Brownlow medal is Matt Priddis. So he comes in at 3. Number 2, Bruce. Lukey
I can
Bruce.
see what's happening here, Gabbo.
What is
There's 2 out of 4 names she's mentioned.
Hey.
She stared down the camera then as well.
It's not my fault that
was
Hawthorn
absurd.
have had some savvy recruiting
You've
in
left
their
a
time.
Collingwood premiership captain out of this list and you put a little Hawthorn
I'm
small...
sorry. He's a 3-time premiership player. He's kicked 553 goals across 308 games. He's also the record holder for the most AFL games by a rookie. Had to be in there, Damo. No brainer.
Even ahead of
Nick Maxwell.
Stephen Milne. I think your bias has got you here.
No, ahead of Stephen Milne. I
Really?
tossed up Stephen Milne, but didn't make the cut.
Doesn't even get an apology.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Stephen Milne didn't win a flag. Sorry.
He had a bouncing ball go the wrong
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
But
Straight
Coming in at number 1,
Finish.
Dean Cox.
I can't dispute that one.
You
Nat.
cannot go
No,
past
number
Dean
one,
Cox. A
no.
6-time All-Australian.
6-time.
He's just the best ruckman of his generation, and he just revolutionised the way that role was played. As we know, a premiership player as well, but picked 28 in the 2000 rookie draft. So Dean Cox is the number 1. Don't worry, I wasn't going to have Luke Bruce there. So that is my top 5 for this week. Let's finish things off with Out on a Limb. Damo, what have you got for me?
Oh, I'm so looking forward to Thursday night footy. Nat. It's
The only good game this
you
weekend.
Sometimes you just get really excited about a game, and I'm really excited about Fremantle versus Hawthorn. I think they're the 2 best teams in it. I say that
Sydney?
I know what Sydney's doing, but I still think these 2 teams are better at the moment. I think they're more rounded anyway, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what they do, and this is a different Fremantle. The Fremantle of yesteryear would have lost that game last week to the Western Bulldogs. It certainly wouldn't have won 7 matches in a row after losing a match it probably should have won to start the season against Geelong. They've got edges and they've got dynamic elements to their game. They're prepared to put in my new favourite, Murphy Reid, into the midfield quite regularly. Shea Bolton is having his best season of football. Now, I know it's only 8 games old this season, and he's played some very good football in premiership winning seasons, but he's on track to surpass all that with what he's doing this year already. So
comeback season.
Josh Tracy, as you just mentioned. I just love watching them. Equally, I love seeing what Nick Watson and Jack Ginnivan and others will do at Hawthorn. So can't pick them just yet, Nat, but looking forward to it as much as any game that I can recall.
It is a mouth-watering one, and you didn't steal my thunder, but my Out on a Limb, Josh, I'm skipping over you because it's sticking with the same game, but is trouble brewing because I look at Fremantle's midfield. It is so dynamic. I actually think it's the most dynamic in the AFL, and I know Brisbane have a very good outfit, but in terms of X factor and what they can do with Hayden Young going through there as well, I think there's just a little bit more dimension and dynamicism, if that's a word, through there. But I think this could show that Hawthorn's lack of midfield depth might just... We talked about that after the round 1 loss to the Giants. We haven't talked about it since. I feel like maybe they are just one short here when you compare them to what Fremantle's midfield has on offer.
They've had a few escapes, haven't they? Like, it was a draw
They
last
have.
week against Collingwood and the narrow win against Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide, exactly.
So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. But they are a team that rises to the occasion.
They do. Anyway, that's...
Will Day back in full training today, so just...
Stop it. Don't jinx Will Day. Let's not talk about him. Gabbo.
I think the Marcus Bontempelli train is just going to keep rolling through to Adelaide. Clearly, he needs a break. He has battled through these past 2 games, Damo, like he has many occasions in the past. I
Nearly
think
got the job done against the Dockers with how he played.
How impressive has he been in the last fortnight? I know we
But
make
it's
a
not
lot
a surprise, is
of
it?
these flu games,
Yeah.
but these are games where he can barely train, barely move.
Barely walk.
And so much surprise across the last fortnight that he's gotten up. But I think he needs to keep getting up because no Libba. And clearly, Adam Treloar, I just don't know if he's going to have that power to play again. He was managed last week, so their depth is being tested. And I can't wait to see how he uses Riley Sanders, because the job that he did on Caleb Sarong has gone under the radar a little bit, and I'd love to see him go to Zach Butters on Friday night and go head to head.
Imagine that. That'd be a good lesson either way for young Riley Sanders. All right, that is it for another edition of the AFL Daily Roundtable. Thank you so much for joining us. The AFL Daily team, myself, Damo and Riley will be back again tomorrow.